Welcome to episode 2, Adulting, the job no one trains you for.
So here's a question. When exactly do you become an adult? Is it when you start paying your own bills, or when someone at the store calls you ma'am? Or when you get married at 19 because you think being someone's wife, that's a valid exit strategy from childhood trauma, right? Asking for myself?
Or is adulthood when you realize that no one's coming to save you? That no one has the answers. And you have to Google how to cook rice for the third time at age 43. True story.
Yeah, in this episode, we're digging into what it means to adult. Not the Instagrammable version, not the literacy TED Talk version, but the actual messy version. The one where you're juggling a job you might hate, or you're in a marriage you're still trying to figure out, a body that's aging too soon, or an inner child that still flinches when someone raises their voice.
John Dewey said, "We do not learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on experience." And in this episode today, we're going to talk about some experiences and what we've learned from them and how it applies to adulthood.
Let's take some time now for a little reality inventory. As Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. So let's examine it, but not through a filtered lens, but for real. What we were told life would be versus what actually has turned out to be.
So today we're going to explore some really tough questions, some vulnerable answers, the very raw kind, coming from our personal life, that talk about how we have struggled as adults and examining life, what we thought it was going to be and what it ended up being, and the differences between those two. And to be honest with you, we're not alone. The reason we shared that is I know we're not struggling this by ourselves. I mean, just the other day I was getting a haircut, and the barber just stopped and just went, and didn't realize that she was exposing herself vulnerable. And I looked at her with a puzzling question. She said, "Life, when's it end?" She says, "I never have enough money. I'm always exhausted. This rat race never ends. I got a friend of ours that completely quit their job in her early 40s because I'm through." Like, she's back home living with her parents. Has some other friends we're having dinner with, and they're like, what is life about? And the reason I share that is we're not the only ones that are struggling with it. It seems that this whole age, this whole cohort has a collective angst, a collective anxiety that we are fed up with the discrepancy between what we thought life was going to be versus what it actually ended up being, and we're trying to reconcile those differences. Matter of fact, just this morning, hang on just a minute. Oh, here it is. Look at this. This is a plaque I made myself when I was 12. Topics on which to be an authority by 20 years of age.
Wow.
It's what I expected life to be. I have another plaque a few years later that expanded to literally, I signed it.
Oh my goodness.
I signed it at, I couldn't have been 15 years of age. I mean, listen to what I say. I had 27 points of things that I wanted by the time I was 25. I mean, this kid is like intense. I'm not even driving. I quote, "I, Brannon Littleton," and I signed it. "In all faith that henceforth continually I shall consecrate my utmost being to God Almighty, relying supremely on the such guidance and strength not afforded by any mortal establishment. do hereby commit myself until further enlightenment to any and all principles set forth in the above writings." Wow. That's me at 14 with all, I was kind of vowing to myself that I was going to do those things or be that type person by the time that I was 25. And so when I found it just this morning in a box. And so when I was reading through that, looking at it as a 43-year-old, part of me went, what were you going through at 13 and 14 to be that intense with that type of grammar? Yeah. When what you should have been doing was, why weren't you enjoying life, And so I'm glad we're talking about this today. So let's dive into this, and I'm eager to hear what you say. What were you told life was going to be like? How did that image come about when, let's say, you're 14 or 15 or even younger?
Well, I was actually pondering over this the last couple of days, and I honestly I don't remember mom and dad's ever really sitting down and talking to me about this is what your life could be. This is what your life. I was never given like these opportunities. Like here are all these different paths that you could go down. What do you want?
Mm.
There was always for me like this unspoken message of, okay, we're in this religious background, so my options are you're going to be a stay-at-home mom, wife. You need to be looking for a preacher, a minister, a missionary. That's your path. I mean, that was the non-spoken message that I was picking up on throughout our childhood.
Through the social context.
Yeah, because I was never exposed to anything else.
Right.
And when it came closer to college, Dad told me, okay, you got the one in Florida, you got the one in Ohio. These are Bible colleges. Pick one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so my options at these colleges then turned to, okay, what do you study? And the whole time you're really there just to try to meet a God because you don't see a way out of the life that you have been locked into. Because even as a teenager, Dad didn't want me to work. I didn't have any way of going out and starting a life on my own outside of mom and dad or me get married. Those were my options because I didn't have any other choices. So for me, what I vision my life looking like, I'm going to be with either a minister or missionary. I'm going to have to be a stay-at-home mom because the woman's role is in the home.
Yeah.
And that would be my life. So what that has left for me now is I've realized that a big part of my frustrations is I've had all these expectations, these visions in my head of what either my role as a wife would be or my role as a mother would be. And it's been really eye-opening to get to those points in my life. Okay, nothing in my life has prepared me for what I am now facing. And so I feel like most of it now has just been just winging it and figuring it out as I go because where my life is now is nothing like what I thought it would be when I was 14, 15.
Well, I'm not so sure how to put into words what I was envisioning because that's a weird 14-year-old that would write those type of things. I mean, it's 27 points and then framed it. I remember hanging that up on my wall. And here I've done studies in human development and strategic communications, and so there's a part of me that doesn't even recognize that person that was there. I mean, why weren't you into cars, Brannon? Why weren't you in? I mean, girls weren't even on my mind. You know that I'm not even. I'm writing this stuff because I want this perfect life. And I think what that image, the psychologists call them scripts. We develop them early on in life, you know, and we derive them from our environment that dictate to us what our life should be like, and those values that we're absorbing from the environment. And you got to think about how we were raised, you know, Andy Griffith. You know, Gunsmoke, Bonanza. You know, we didn't have TV. We just had this VCR, and mom and dad are really careful about what we're exposed to. And on the flip side, it's fantastic. There's a lot of things we shouldn't have been exposed to. But for me, I had this idyllic view of life. You know, this Anne of Green Gables type. If any of you ever watched the scene, Megan Follows in Anne of Green Gables back from the 80s, I just remember that's the life you're supposed to live. You know, you're a good person. You follow these values, and then things are going to work out for you. I think my biggest expectation of life was if you are the person that follows the rules, then things work out for you. I was the guy that graduated a year early from high school. I was the kid in college who followed, I didn't just follow the rules. I'm sitting there reading the student manual once a quarter because the manual said we need to review this regularly. And so I'm following those rules. And I remember sharing my perspective at a table at lunchtime with one of the professors and some students, and I was very adamant about the fact that people should follow rules. And my professor congratulated me. Yes, that's the way life should be. You should follow the rules. So in my mind, I was anticipating life to reward me for being the kid that was always on time, the kid that was organized, the kid that was studious. Heck, I was studying Greek when I was 14, not because no one made me, because I wanted to. I'm out in Dad's study reading all the books I can get a hold of because I wanted to be smart. Why? Because if I do this, then I succeed in life. And I think that was the big overarching picture, was things are going to work out smoothly for me because I am following the guidelines that I have been taught. And I think that leads us into the next question. Well, how did life actually work out? And this is where I wanted to cue in the sound of dun dun dun, because by the time I hit 21, I got through college, and things really fell apart real fast. And we'll talk about this probably in another episode in our personal life. Everything that I had been taught about how to process life from the remote, secluded, homeschool, strict religious environment to the dedication to rules. I mean, I'm not the 16-year-old that's running around. I'm the 16-year-old that's actually traveling and speaking in churches. So this 16-year-old kid is really different.
Yeah. When
life started falling apart in the early 20s, that is when I had no other... I didn't have an explanation as to why this is. Why was I finding myself 100% alone? Financially struggling in my early 20s. Finding out that it doesn't matter how much character you have, the world doesn't care about that. Realizing how much, we talk about becoming an adult, realizing that my preparation for being an adult and working in a society that was so self-centered, that was so self-absorbed, so materialistic-minded, I had no earthly idea. I mean, I remember I was so ignorant about the things of the world. I didn't even know the difference between a luxury car and a cheap car. I remember when a roommate of mine, when I was at a college, he was just bawled over in tears because he broke up with a perfect girlfriend because he's a man. She was driving and he named some car and it was supposed to be expensive. Looking back now, I remember what he told me. Yeah, that was an expensive car. I didn't understand it. I mean, what's the big deal? What's this? It's a car. What? Because to him, that girl envisioned the perfect life that he was going to have because it checked off all the boxes. And I didn't even have the boxes because for me, the idea of success was I'm a person that tells the truth. I'm a person that studies. I'm a person that is constantly trying to put other people first. I'm trying to do the right thing. And that very quickly fell apart for me. And what life has been like for me has been a constant struggle. How do I fit into a world that to this day, I do not understand? I found myself at times gravitating to people of much older generations because their values, they show up on time, they do the work, they're dedicated. There's a lot of there's been more integrity. Not always, but I've gravitated toward those people and have had a very difficult time interacting with my own age cohort because I'm not interested in the fancy boat. I'm not interested in the fancy car. I'm not interested in the fancy showy life. I don't like a dog and pony show. I don't like the fact that I'm just all smoke and mirrors. I'm trying to impress you. No, I like realness. And finding authenticity in a world today is extremely hard. And that has been... life for me took me down journeys where financial was struggle in my early 20s. Relationships were tough. And my wife will tell you that to this day I have a little bit of bitterness. If I was that dedicated to my faith, why did I find myself so in the opposite circumstances that I was desperately trying to avoid? So that's kind of a snapshot of how life was turning out for me.
Right. Well, I mean, I never even finished college, which there was multiple reasons there, but I also, just looking back and getting married at 19,
Yeah.
and I understand why I did it. And even though I don't think it may have been the smartest decision as far as the timing, I don't have any significant, I don't have a regret on who I married. It was all about the time. I think a lot of the struggles that my husband and I had during our early years could have potentially have been avoided had we not gotten married at such a young age,
Yeah.
and for the reasons that I got married.
Yeah.
Because I a lot of people, I think, go into marriage with the sole vision of being, oh, how much I love this person. Not to say that there wasn't love between me and Jeremy, and still is, but when you are driven so much from a survival standpoint, there's a different priority there at that time. And so that, for me, that is not something I had thought life would be like, because I thought marriage would be about romance, it would be about butterflies. But I mean, you've met, Jeremy, he's not the romantic type, and he's the first to admit it. Anytime he has tried to do something romantic, he and I just end up laughing because it is just so hilarious. we can't even get through it because he's like, yeah, this is just not me. It's not me.
No, he's a true engineer. He fits the mold of an engineer. I love him though. He's so funny. You're gonna love this. I actually found this morning over at my desk. It was some journaling I was doing a few years ago.
Oh wow!
And I had a few aha moments, and this is April 27th, 2023. So 2 years ago.
Okay.
I wrote down, everything till now has been done out of a place of fear and judgment.
Yep.
Nothing has ever been pursued out of a place of joy and abundance. This right here, these things, they're not done because a kid was really passionate about something. There was a kid that was trying to actually, what did I say? Here it is. All endeavors have been for the sole purpose of getting circumstances to a state in which I no longer experience fear. So when I look back over my last 20 years as an adult, they have been driven entirely by fear of failure, fear of being alone, fear of being made fun of, fear of being rejected. And interestingly enough, I have faced all of those simultaneously and at multiple times along the journey. And did it turn out the way I wanted to? Not at all. Not at all. I mean, I think that Bible college student of me, at 18, 19 years of age, would be astonished to see how life within 10 years of that took it down a road that I just never would have dreamed.
Right.
And I wrote down some other things here. I wrote down, I'm attempting to avoid people in life in general because I'm scared of everything. I remember when I was dating, my wife, Bridgett, and we were going to go to a fancy location. I couldn't even go in by myself. She wanted me to go in ahead of her because she took care of something, and I was too scared because I didn't feel like I belonged. So anyone listening to that, if you got any background in psychology, particularly if you're a counselor, you're starting to put two and two together. Well, we got to answer what's causing that. Well, we'd have to deal with that in another episode, really. But it was just fascinating that this morning I came across this journal. I have joy can't take root in soil made up entirely of fear and judgment. The amount of self-judgment, the amount of I am not doing something because I enjoy it. I'm doing it because it's a calculated move. And what I'm realizing is that we are waking up in our 40s, and not just us, other people, and realizing that you cannot spend your entire life running away from something that's in your head. You're not in alignment with something that's really making you come alive. I won't keep sharing this. You stop me if I'm getting off track here. Talking about that hard soil of fear and judgment. No amount of wealth can eradicate the heart or the bad soil. I wrote, abundance can't come your way when your eyes see things only through fear and judgment. Mm-hmm. You must replace the soil. And I wrote down at the time I was 41, I must replace the soil, all 41 years of it. This is all in one day. This is 2 years ago.
Wow.
I wrote, materialism and entertainment pursued by people are done as a temporary relief from the achingness that all the fear and judgment produces. Because as a society, when you look at the angst that's there, the amount of anxiety that's there, it's because we were all painted a picture in some way or another of the American dream, and whatever that is for folks. And notice we're just talking about challenges, internal, emotional challenges, financial challenges. We haven't even thrown in the mix the physical challenges that come.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you don't think about that when you're 18 years of age. You don't think about the fact that you can have a wreck and you're paralyzed, or someone near to, the life didn't turn out at all. I'm reminded every time I go home to grandmother's house for Christmas that in that short period of time, our cousin died, an aunt died, our father died, our grandfather died. There's no family hardly, because people have, we were expecting that to happen way longer. So there's things you can't predict. But if you're always trying to avoid the unpleasantry in life, then you're never being driven by what defines you. And I'll let you answer some questions here. What would my life look like? What would my life look like with no fear or judgment?
Wow.
Could this question be the key to finding and unlocking true passion? And it's interesting that 2 years ago I wrote those things down, and I still find myself coming back to those issues of fear of judgment, fear of people, fear of things that haven't even happened, and the anxiety is kicking in because that fight or flight response that was so triggered and made sensitive because of our childhood. How do I survive? And I actually wrote over here a few days before that. Let me see if I can find it. Or did I say I wrote, you are currently not in survival mode. You've just got to tell your brain that.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And so I wonder.
I found that interesting because for probably up into maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I did not realize how much I was in survival mode.
Yes.
Like, I think I had just adapted, gotten used to it, and this was just how life was. And when I stopped and I found myself almost to a breaking point. So you can ask Jeremy, and I think I've even shared with you some in our many conversations that I told Jeremy, I was like, I don't know if I can keep going. I even actually told one of my neurologists, because I was struggling so much. I was like, if this is what life is, I can't live like this. And I started looking back more and realizing childhood, 100% survival mode. Getting married at 19, don't know what the heck you're doing.
Yeah.
Definite major survival mode, because, neither one of us knew what we were doing. And then 5 years later, we have Chloe, even more clueless on what I'm doing. And I'm trying to survive one thing after another. Jeremy joins the military. I get hit with multiple different health diagnoses over the last several years. One thing after another. And then you got all this childhood baggage that you've been carrying through with all of this. And so
yes,
I have 100% been in survival mode for a good 35 plus years. And just within the past few years, I feel like I've been able to analyze it more, break it down more, and start living and not just surviving.
When I read when I found that in a box this morning, and I read through that, what hit me was this was not a kid that was acting out of joy. This was a kid that had some very negative environments going on at that time, and thought, well, if I become this type person, then I can protect myself from the negativity. And it's interesting that at times, if we are maturing as adults, we actually become the person that would have kept the younger version of us safe, because those fears, those even if we're not aware of them, the hurt, the pain is motivating us, and we may not know it's there. And I think that I'm at a place in my life where, and I had this conversation with my wife not too long ago, I want to do something that I can't wait to wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm not asking for perfection in life. I'm not asking for things to always go my way. That's not life. But I'm talking about something that just, because there are people there I've met that are like that. They found their focus. And reflecting on these journal entries, I think the hang up has been for me not realizing how much fear, anxiety, self-loathingness. I mean, I'm literally like the Grinch when it comes to myself. Loathe, extra loathe. I find this list of things that I just completely loathe about myself. And then I actually find myself loathing other people. I mean, my current state of mind in processing life is not the same as I was when I was 20. Yeah. I think it was the actor Seinfeld that said something on an episode one time that just blew my mind. I was like, I never had anybody kind of capture everything. He said, I'm perfectly content going through life, hating everything and everyone simultaneously. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, that's me. I'm always like, ah. So it's probably coming from a place of self-protection, usually because of wounds that are there. But I'm at a place in my life where I don't want any of that to define me. I want to know what it's like to, and back to my journaling again. Hang on. I wrote the next day or two about Bernard Shaw had a wonderful quote about the true joy in life, being used for a purpose that's recognized by yourself as being a mighty one. And I was like, what would it be like if I had that type of joy and I was operating from that reservoir and doing something that was mighty, not because I was out of fear or something that's protecting myself, because I found a true joy and a true calling. And oh man, I can I just keep reading for a second? I must have had a moment of inspiration. The feeling of success does not occur when you get to wherever you're headed. Success is the driver to get you there, because once there, either that drive is replaced with emptiness, distraction to block out another emptiness, or it's replaced with another worthy goal.
Wow.
Yep. I'm glancing through the. So here.
What would you say is one of the hardest emotional skills that you've had to learn as an adult?
Rejection.
Wow.
I'll tell you. It's. This memory is so ingrained in my head, and it seems to be repeating multiple times throughout my life, and I can't. It's debilitating.
Yeah.
Well, we went to church camp, and I remember I was different. I'm 12 years old and writing that, so that tells you how much of a geek I was. All right, I'm a pretty bit of a nerd.
Sure.
But at youth camp, I'm dressed like this at 12. That's not the place to be. And so I'm the kid that's winning all the Bible quizzes.
Yeah.
And I remember these kids. I was walking past the concession stand over there below the lunchroom, and these kids called out to me, and I remember them just calling me egghead. They had a point. My head was the same size then as it is now. My body was just smaller, so I was just top heavy. That's why I fell over a lot. But they had a point. But I remember. You're laughing because that's true, right? But they and I remember later on in life a friend of mine saying, "Look at me, man, you do have a big head. Which one of your head is big?" It was the camera's getting out. And what it is,
goodness.
I remember this. It wasn't the fact of the making fun of the head. It was the fact of you're weird. You don't belong. And there's something. And my friend Brandon, he was just being Brandon. I just never forget him. He called me punk. Preacher's ugly, nutty, crummy kid. It's pretty genius.
I forgot about that.
I can't believe Odell came up with that, man. It's so hilarious. I mean, it's not that was the problem. That was actually funny, but the implications for me was you are an oddball, and I think the biggest struggle I've had emotionally is understanding that being homeschooled, nothing wrong with being homeschooled, but in our particular case, being that secluded, no exposure to other people, social skills like a porcupine in a balloon factory, and then not understanding social cues, how to interact with people, even from our own background, just because we're so isolated, and wanting to be a part, but not knowing how to speak the lingo of other people. So throughout my life, whether it's relationships or business, the feeling of rejection, and then understanding how not to associate my value with that moment has been the biggest struggle for me. What about you?
On a similar thread, but more precise, I've struggled with self-worth. Border, like confidence, self-worth.
Oh, I don't have that problem because I'm naked.
Well, other than the rejection I felt a lot from Dad, I can't say I dealt with other rejections socially, but self-worth and confidence has definitely been something I have struggled with. I think it is very crucial that, at least it was for me, I'm sure other people might be different, but having a father-daughter bond. I mean, I was Daddy's girl, but feeling that rejection at times, to steal your word of rejection, but I think it did something to my self-worth and my confidence. And I've recently discovered that I think it's what's made me even more insecure in my marriage, because I'm like, okay, if my dad did not find me to be significant enough, then is my husband finding me to be significant enough? Or is other people in my life finding me significant enough? And that is something I constantly struggle with. And Jeremy and I, we have very long talks about this, because I think it's helpful that he understands where I'm coming from. And he is patient and kind enough to reassure me that I am enough, that I am sufficient, and I am adequate enough. And so it has definitely boosted my self-worth, but that is something that I've definitely struggled with over the years.
I would like to add a next emotion that's been tough, and that is disappointment. And I'm not talking about disappointment with because life had bad moments.
Sure.
I'm talking about my disappointment with faith.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You could not have found a more dedicated 14, 15, 16-year-old. You could not have found a more dedicated Bible college student. And I think that there is a deep wound that that coupled with those moments where the doors were just closed, the disappointment, doors closed right and left, right? I mean, nothing went the way I planned. And I was like, well, what was the point of being the nerd at youth camp? What was the point of being the person that made wiser decisions as a youth when it did not at all protect me? Now, some of it was my own stupidity in my mid-20s, but it was circumstance. It was being in places where you didn't have a lot of choices, and there was a part of me that, well, that's completely outside of my control. You know, we'll have to get in.
I remember on on having similar situation to you in regards to like back to youth camp, I remember also being the one with all the answers to all the questions, to the point that the teacher or the instructor at the time would be like, okay, let someone else answer. But in answer to what you were saying as to why you were doing those things, I know for me, I felt that if I did all those things, I was going to make Dad proud. I was going to look good in his eyes and hopefully measure up to what his expectations were of me. Well, I can't say that was your case, but that was me.
Oh, and that definitely my case for sure. We lived the diagnosis here of our problems is we lived in too small of a world. There wasn't enough exposure. You know, of course, we're looking at to the eyes of being in our 40s now. I mean, we're talking about a ridiculously small world. But it did define the directions that we took in life due to the limited choices. And for me, there's a part that I'm really, you know, when we talk about God, we talk about faith, there's a real hurt in there because I really wanted to make something of myself, but God, why didn't you have me in a place where that could really shine? Why was I stuck in a situation where the worst in me was going to come out? Where the worst things possible to happen to me had a high probability of happening because there wasn't any clear direction other than what I was in. And then of course, letting go and dealing with the emotion of forgiveness, if we call that a forgiveness, maybe that's a choice. I mean, how do we... we'll get down a rabbit trail real fast. Let's go to the next question here. What is the hardest emotional skill you've had to learn? Well, here we go. There it is. What is the hardest emotional skill you've had to learn as an adult? Did we ask that question already?
Yeah, we just did that one.
Oh, there we go. Okay. I'm gonna call it AARP and tell them to put me in a nursing home because it's right. What is one decision you made from survival, not wisdom? And how did it shape you? And for me, in my 20s, being absolutely alone. I mean, no connections whatsoever with any friends from my background, anybody from my background, making relationship decisions because not realizing it, but I was 100% deeply alone, coupled with the feeling of rejection and not belonging anywhere. And you have a recipe of making some dumb decisions, thinking that it's the right decision, motivated entirely, place of fear, place of negativity, you know, and so that's what I look back on and go, man, that was not a good decision. You know, that time period in my life, about 4 years or 5 years, it was pretty dark. But that's what I said would be my answer to that question.
Yeah. Well, I actually caught myself looking back now, and this was probably a lot more recent than our childhood. I'm thinking, I think it was around 2019, 2020 even. I made a decision from a survival perspective of cutting a lot of people out of my life, and not in a mean way, but it was for survival. I was in such a bad place that, and a lot of people, when they come to me, they come to bring me their problems. They come to bring me their troubles, and they want me to listen. And I like doing that. But in that point in my life, I'm like, nope, I cut so many people out of my life. And so it's been difficult now that the fog's lifted and I'm making my way back through it, that I do have to make an intentional effort to reach back out to people to try to reconnect. And that's hard because I that's not my natural go-to thing. I'm not the most social person. And so I do it because I know that there's benefits there. And I do want that connection. But I do look back on that moment and wish that I could have done something different, but I feel like I made the best decision I could in the moment. just for my sanity.
That may be the key to how we, people let go of the past. Not forget the past, but it doesn't hold over them. Is being kind to themselves, and saying that you did the best that you could based upon what you could see in that moment. I was going through a box of photos the other day and found some pictures of my younger self, and it just felt like there was a voice in my head saying, "You need to be kind to that young person because you're hard on yourself because there were a lot of things that were outside of your control." And let's move on to the next question. What's the next one? What's the one thing you regret, not because it was wrong, but because it was made from fear? I don't have an easy answer for that one.
The one that comes to mind for me was, and I've been harping with Chloe on this, do not get married at 19.
Yeah.
I mean, I do not regret marrying my husband. I just regret that the way in which it went about. He did not want to get married at 19. He wanted to wait until he finished college. And I was so desperate to get away that was my option out. And it is something that there's a lot of guilt there for me also, and something that I struggle with also in our marriage, because I feel like I trapped him into something that he was not ready for, that he was not really wanting. Yes. But the thing is, he is the most awesome guy you'll ever meet, and because it would take someone like that. Well, that's a given.
Okay. Thank you. Make me feel accepted. Make me feel loved.
Oh, I never will forget you texting me this image. I forgot what it was. I think it was like this little story about, and I don't know if it was true or not, but a woman was basically said, okay, you have to pick your brother dies or your husband dies. And you sent this to me. And I'm like, okay, kill me now, because I could not live with making that decision. That it would not. I don't know what I would do without either of you in my life.
Brotherly love. Brotherly love.
Yes.
I don't know what my answer to that question would be. I think that stumped me. What's the one thing you regret, not because it was wrong, but because it was made from fear? One of the things that I've realized in my life is that I have a hard time remembering a lot of things from my past. My brain just blocks it off. And so that might be why I can't come up with anything on the spot. But let's just move on here. Have you ever felt like survival was the point of life? Well, I think I've already answered that question.
I think we covered that one in more ways than one.
Well, let's just go to that last question. What do you pretend to have together that you secretly don't? And I would say it's my career. And that career as a subset of I know what I'm doing. I told my wife not too long ago, I said, I think something inside me is really, really broken, and I've just lived with it for so long, but I don't know what is broken. Yeah. And we could talk about all the whys, and we can list those out. We can list the environment, and we could say I'm not the type of person that's going to point blames, whether it's dad or someone else. No. I am my own person.
Sure.
I own who I am. But one of the things that I go with are nightmares that I have every night, and we've talked about this a little bit ourselves. Yeah. Horrible nightmares. They're never just random. They're every night, all the time, all night long, and you dread going to sleep because it's just nightmares. So there's looking on as if I were to, be a third party looking on, say, hey man, something's broken there. Something's going awry. And so you're faking it. I've spent a lot of years being in church pulpits, directing music and being a part of worship stuff, and just being dead inside. And not because of that's what I choose, but something's there, and for me, I know what it's like to just smile. I got my suit on, I got all my degrees, and there really and truly is just that aching feeling. Something ain't quite right. Something. There's not an alignment. That's it. There's never been a true alignment between an awareness of who I am and who I'm not, and the way I'm living that out. And I don't like being fake, but I can't quite get it together in my mind of what, and it might be just the fact that I have too much expectations of myself.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
Where's that list at? Hang on just a minute. No, the other one. Yeah, the other one. Topics on which to be an authority by the time you're 20. I'm 12 or homeschooled. I couldn't even do basic algebra. I got number 1, stock market and investing. Who in my family was doing that? No, we didn't even know what the stock market was.
We didn't have internet either. So.
Oh no. I don't know where I'm coming up with this stuff.
Yeah.
2, small business management. This is interesting at 12. 13, I'm thinking I'm going to be 3, vocal techniques. Of course, that's because of my musical background. I was already singing at 12. So 4, I don't know, computer structuring, programming, operation, and related. I didn't have the right nomenclature. I remember going to the library to read books on computers because no one in our life we didn't know how to run the things. We'd sit there and just look. I've got theology. I got psychology. I've got audio recording industry. Wow. At 9. 10, the operation / function of social economics and the methods for improvement. Dude,
wow.
You're supposed to be fishing. You're supposed to be in the cars, or riding a go-kart. But no, and then I have church history mixed with theology. This was at 12.
My goodness.
And so a part of my angst might be that I have too much expectations of myself. Maybe that's the case, where there's not that sense of alignment where who am I, how does this come into, where to find where I belong. So that's where I'm faking it at. It's like I don't have all the answers yet, and so we just kind of swinging it.
Some days adulthood it may mean just checking off 5 things on your list. Other days you may just be saying, okay, I'm not spiraling today. But I mean, both of those are valid. So we have to be proud of that version of us that keeps trying, even though it may not be something that's Instagrammable, but it's something that's real. So we just have to consider what Brene Brown, she's a researcher, author, and a motivational speaker. She promotes a message that is, there's no such thing as having it all together. There's just showing up.
Yeah. I've been around in the business world for a while, and I am always amazed when I look under the curtain behind the facade. Very, very, very few people have it together at all, and we're just faking it. And I think that the shared collective angst that we all have is that we're equally aware of how much, can I use the word fakery, is in our life. Social media has really brought that to the surface in the last 20 years, that I'm trying to portray a life that's one way, but it's really this other way, but I don't need you to see the man behind the curtain.
Right.
And there's, ironically, 20 years ago, I came up with an acronym, and every time things have gone awry in my life, just because I've kind of strayed from this acronym, it's called Resolved. It's called the REAL acronym. Resolved to embrace authentic living. And so I think I keep coming back to that. How do I be an authentic version of myself? I'm not talking about hanging out all the dirty wash folks to see, but there's an alignment between who I am and what I'm portraying it to be, and I'm trying to be that authentic version. And I that's the goal that I want to work toward. Look, if you're listening to this and wondering how everyone else, makes it look so easy, they don't. They're faking it too. So I would say welcome to adulthood. The job no one has trained us for at all. And where the only real qualification is simply showing up, imperfect, confused, and still trying.
Yeah. And wait for it. Just when you think you figured out adulthood, then comes parenthood for some people.
Well, I'm looking forward to that episode because we're going to really rely on you. I'm not a parent, and the universe thanks me for that because we don't need another me. But I have worked for 15 years one-on-one as an educator, and have seen really close hand the struggles that parents go through. I know what it's like for those parents to sit in my studio and they're in tears because they can't figure out the next step. Yep. So next week, we're pulling back the curtain on parenting beyond the baby milestone post and all the family photo ops. So stay tuned.
Yeah, we're calling it parenting, the dirty little secrets they won't post.
We'll talk about identity loss, emotional overload, and those quiet moments where you fantasize about a solo weekend in a hotel with no crayons, no questions, and no one asking you why 1,000 times.
Well, parenting, it can be beautiful, but it's also brutal at times. And if you've ever cried in that school pickup line or Google how much screen time is too much while handing your child the tablet, you're in good company.
This is life. What is it good for? So next week, we get real about parenting. Don't miss it.